3 a.m., the shocking truth behind the devastating satanic cult leaders' haunting secrets. In the dead of night, when the world is wrapped in shadows, a group of figures gathered in a dingy warehouse, their chants echoing like a sinister lullaby. It was 3 a.m., an hour heavy with whispers and secrets. The air crackled, charged with anticipation, as hooded silhouettes swayed, their voices rising in a crescendo of madness. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the horrors unfolding just a few blocks away. What drew these lost souls to the crushing power of a so-called leader? Rumors spoke of dark magic, unspeakable rites, and unholy apparitions that pierced the veil between worlds. Those who dared to leave the cult spoke of strange sights, glowing runes carved into their backs, symbols that seemed to move under the skin. Inside, they worshipped in desperate fervor, entranced by the magnetic pull of a man named Victor Graves, his presence a chilling blend of charm and cruelty. Just the mention of his name sent shivers down spines. He was the harbinger of nightmares, and his gaze could strip away hope in a flash. Members claimed he could summon shadows from the depths, bending reality to his will. But what was even more unsettling? The dark power he possessed seemed to grow stronger with every sacrifice, whispering promises of power to those willing to pay the ultimate price. Every chant carried the suffocating weight of intent, drowning out reason. The stench of fear mingled with burning sage, creating an atmosphere thick and suffocating, yet, on that night, something shifted. An electrifying tension grasped the room, eyes widened, breath held. One familiar face trembled at the edge of the gathered circle, Jenna, once a vibrant artist, now a ghost entranced by Victor's grasp. What had cracked within her? Why now were her hands shaking like leaves in a storm? The moment felt monumental, like the calm before an explosion. Around her, whispers crescendoed, this could be it. Energy sparked through the blood-soaked ground. Maybe she could escape this nightmare. Maybe. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Breathing heavily, Jenna felt the sudden urge to flee, but shadows danced around her, as if the darkness itself was alive. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the chant. Victor's eyes blazed with intensity, locking onto Jenna like a hawk spotting prey. The air thickened with dread as she realized this was no ordinary gathering. The truth about the cult would claw its way to the surface soon, and the revelation would be bloodier and more horrifying than anyone could imagine. What did they really want from her? Would the secrets she uncovered be her salvation or her doom? The clock ticked ominously, counting down to an unknown fate. The chant faltered. An eerie silence enveloped the room, heavy with anticipation and dread. Jenna's heart raced, pounding like a drum against her ribs. She could feel Victor's gaze drilling into her, a fiery presence that seemed to peel away her layers of sanity. Every whisper around her became a ghostly echo, suffocating her thoughts, and she fought to reclaim her mind from the grasp of desperation. She took a trembling step back, her feet heavy with indecision. This was her moment, a sliding door to escape. But what if the truth was darker than her nightmares? The glowing symbols that adorned her skin felt like they were burning her alive. A chill snaked down her spine, and just as she considered turning to flee, Victor raised a hand. "Do not fear, my children." His voice boomed, deep and intoxicating. "Tonight, we break the chains of our past, and I shall reveal the hidden depths of our covenant." The crowd responded with a frenzy of whispers, their eyes alight with fervor. His power radiated from him, a pulse that resonated with the air itself. Jenna felt torn between terror and the deafening draw of his promise. What chains? What past? She took another step back, and the flat ground seemed to pulse, the very earth beneath her shifting like quicksand. It was alive, hungry, craving something she wasn't ready to give. Suddenly, with a swift motion, Victor beckoned her forward. Jenna, step into the light. Embrace your true self. You know there's more to you, more than just an artist. You're destined for greatness. His eyes shimmered with a darkness that was almost inviting. She had seen it in others, the way they melted under his charm, like wax before a flame. But she had no plans to become another torch extinguished. A sickening wave of clarity washed over her. She could see the faces of her fellow cult members, their features twisted in ecstasy and desperation, as if they were pawns in a game with stakes far above them. Each of them had secrets, rich, grotesque secrets that could hold the key to tearing down this accursed facade. Jenna glanced at the exit, battling the instinct to run. If she left, would they follow her? Would Victor unleash his wrath on her? A sudden thought pierced through the chaos. What if she didn't have to run? What if the truth could empower her, offering a path through the shadows he conjured? You want me to embrace this? Jenna shouted over the rising chant. What if I uncover the truth of who you really are? The room fell silent again. Victor's lips curled into a wicked smile. Ah, my little artist, truth can be so subjective. With that, he waved his hand, and the shadows around them shifted. The wall behind him began to pulse with light, revealing strange symbols that glowed ominously. Jenna's breath hitched. The runes, real and alive, seemed to reach toward her. They wanted her to react, to jump into the fray of darkness, and she could feel her heart racing anew, caught between dread and discovery. But Victor wasn't finished. You think you can challenge me? You have no idea what you're up against. The time for games is over. With those words, the room erupted into chaos. The cult members screamed as if drawn to unseen forces, twisting and turning, their bodies colliding in erratic movements. Jenna, frozen in terror, stood on the precipice of everything she feared and longed for. The very air crackled with energy, and as she braced herself for whatever would come next, another scream pierced the air, not from the circle, but from the warehouse's entrance. Someone had come to save her, or perhaps it was another shadow seeking to claim her soul. What awaited her beyond the chaos? Would she discover the truth hidden within Victor's web of lies, or was there an even darker fate sealed within the shadows of the cult? Jenna clutched her chest, struggling to breathe, the weight of the moment hanging thick around her. As she glanced toward the entrance, her heart raced with terror and hope. What would step through those doors next? The echo of the scream curled through the frantic crowd, slicing the chaos like a knife. Jenna's pulse quickened, the thrill of battle warring with her instinct to flee. The entrance to the warehouse loomed before her like a portal into another world, vibrant and alive in its menace. The last remnants of Victor's voice faded, replaced by gasps and wild whispers. What was that? Someone cried out, eyes darting. The cult members, once entranced, began to look around as if they were waking from a fever dream. A figure emerged through the door, backlit by the streetlights outside. Jenna squinted, her heart pounding. As the shadow stepped closer, she recognized him. Lucas, her childhood friend, the one person who had fought against the unseen tide of darkness that swallowed others whole. Jenna! He shouted, urgency lined in his voice. Get out of here. Victor spun around, fury flashing across his face. So, the little boy has come to play hero? How quaint. Lucas held his ground, the muscles in his jaw tightening as he faced Victor. This isn't a game, Victor. You're toying with lives. The atmosphere shifted again, electricity crackling in the air like static after a storm. Jenna felt herself caught in the storm's eye, anger mixing with fear. It was almost as if the walls could hear them, coming alive with the resonance of their words. Jenna, please. Lucas pleaded, searching her eyes. You have to trust me. We've got to leave now. But what about them? She gestured to the crowd, their faces a mix of rapture and terror. They're all under his spell. They need to learn the truth. We can't save them, but you can still save yourself. His words ignited a flicker of hope, yet doubts gnawed at her. What kind of truth were they standing on? Victor's laughter boomed, echoing against the cold warehouse walls. Truth is an illusion. One that bends and twists to serve our desires. Doesn't that spark a little curiosity, Jenna? In that moment, Jenna felt the heated weight of choice settle into her gut. Should she follow Victor, dive deeper into the abyss of his seduction, or turn toward Lucas and face the uncertainty of escape? Just as she contemplated whether she could trust her instincts, the ground underfoot trembled, and the glowing symbols flickered wildly like fireflies in a storm. With newfound determination, she locked eyes with Lucas. We can't leave without them. I can help them break free. I just need to know what's really happening here. Are you sure? Lucas looked worried, afraid of the answer. This isn't just a game anymore. I have to know the truth. Her voice steadied, a tingling resolve coursing through her. Together we can turn the tide. Before she could take another step, the runic symbols suddenly erupted in a blinding light, engulfing the room in flames of color that twisted and writhed. The chanting rose again, now echoing with unbridled intensity. The cult members screamed, their bodies uniting in a crescendo of agony and ecstasy as the magic of the runes took hold. Jenna felt her skin prickle with heat, the strange marking on her arm flaring with life. Was she being summoned or sacrificed? She glanced at Lucas, whose expression mirrored her own fear mingled with something profound, a raw depth that spoke of shared history, anguish, and hope. Trust me. Lucas shouted, desperation spiking through his voice. He reached for her hand. We'll figure this out together. With her heart pounding like an executioner's drum, Jenna took a deep breath and bolted forward, plunging into the chaos. Together they charged toward the heart of the madness, their fates intertwined. But as they surged through the throngs of chaos, a shadow broke free from Victor's control, something darker than they realized. And as another piercing scream tore through the air, a chilling realization hit her. In discovering the truth of Victor's power, they might just be unleashing something far more deadly than they could ever prepare for. What would they unearth if they dared to face the Covenant's hidden curse? Would the truth they sought be the key to salvation or the catalyst for a horror yet to unfold? The light burned like 1,000 suns, tearing through the warehouse, and Jenna shielded her eyes as she felt the energy pulse through her veins. It was terrifying and intoxicating all at once. She clutched Lucas's hand tighter, their breaths quickening as they pushed deeper into the writhing mass of bodies and chants. Where do we go? Lucas yelled over the clamor, his voice barely piercing the boiling frenzy around them. Follow the light. Jenna shouted back, feeling an odd pull toward a corner of the room where the runes glowed the brightest. As they forged ahead, cries of pain and wonder erupted from those around them. Some cult members fell to their knees, clutching their heads as if battling unseen forces. Others laughed, their faces twisted with ecstasy. It was a nightmare, an insane ballet where the lines between celebration and suffering blurred intensely. Look! Lucas pointed, his face pale. Jenna squinted and saw a swirling mist in the corner, black, ink-like, and soaking up the brightness like a sponge. The mist twisted and turned, forming shapes that seemed all too familiar. Human figures flickered in and out, their faces contorted in agony. What is that? Jenna's stomach knotted. It was as if the nightmare was feeding on their fear and pain. It's feeding off their energy. Lucas realized, dread overshadowing him. It's drawing them in. The runes pulsed in response, screams growing louder, drowning any semblance of reason. That cacophony seemed to drip into Jenna's mind, intermingling with the frantic heartbeat thundering in her chest. She turned to Lucas, her voice wavering. We have to shut it down. We can't let it take anyone else. Jenna, we might. I don't care. Fear fueled her words. This isn't just about us anymore. Before Lucas could protest, Jenna broke away from his grip and rushed toward the roiling mass of mist. The instinct to save the ensnared souls overwhelmed her. Each step sent ripples of dread coursing through her body, yet she pressed onward, feeling the energy from the runes calling her closer. Victor stood at the center, arms raised, eyes blazing with dark fervor. "Fools!" he roared, his laughter mingling with the madness. "You think you can stop this? You're already part of the game." The shadows lashed out towards Jenna, creeping and swirling like tendrils, threatening to pull her into their abyss. She recoiled, fighting the overwhelming urge to turn back, but she felt something stir within her. The marking on her arm ignited, a pulse synchronized with the energy of the runes. Jenna extended her arm, focusing on the light rather than the encroaching darkness. "Get away from them!" she shouted, feeling a surge of power build inside her. The mist hesitated, retreating for a mere instant, as if held at bay by her refusal to back down. Lucas, now by her side again, caught the determination in her eyes. "Together, Jenna. We can unleash it." With Lucas beside her, they shouted a mantra, each syllable resonating with the ancient power embedded in the runes. A wave rippled across the crowd, as if the threads of fate were weaving themselves anew, but as the shadows screamed in response, something else emerged from the darkness, an arm, gaunt and blackened, thrusting from the swirling mass. The air chilled. It was no longer about Victor's games, they were awakening something that lay dormant, something ancient and terrifying. "Jenna, we need to," Lucas gasped, eyes widening in shock as the figure began to materialize. "No." Jenna's voice broke as fear seized her heart. "What are we releasing?" As the figure emerged fully, a howl pierced the air, filled with sorrow and rage, shaking the very foundations of the warehouse. What had they uncorked? What had they invited into their world just by seeking the truth? And as horror blanketed the room, one thing was clear: everything they knew had just shifted, teetering on the edge of unimaginable fate. Would they survive the truth they had set in motion, or were they about to become part of a nightmare far worse than any of them could imagine? The figure pulled itself free from the mist with a haunting grace, its form growing solid as it emerged into the light. The air grew thick with an otherworldly chill, and Jenna felt it wrap around her like a fog. The shrieking voices of the cult members rose to fever pitch, their faces twisted in a masochistic blend of terror and ecstasy. "Jenna! Stay close!" Lucas yelled, grabbing her arm, but his grip felt weak. He was staring at the figure, eyes wide with disbelief that it was a woman, her skin a deep, ghastly black, eyes glowing like twin coals smoldering from within. Her hair flowed like shadows behind her, adding to the otherworldly aura that pulsed from her mere existence. A chill crept down Jenna's spine. As she stared into the woman's eyes, Jenna felt her own consciousness flickering like a candle in a storm, teetering on the edge of fear and fascination. What is she?" Lucas stammered, voice almost drowned by the screams. "This is what we unleashed," Jenna whispered, horror clawing at her throat. "We have to stop her." Before she could finish, the woman raised an arm, palm open, and the mist surged forward like a tidal wave, engulfing the nearest cult members. They gasped, faces pale as the darkness overtook them, their bodies jerking in ecstasy as the black tendrils wrapped around them, feeding off their energy. "Stop it! Let them go!" Jenna cried, a surge of panic bubbling inside her. The chaos intensified, clashing with the supernatural powers awakening around them. The cultists surrounding them began chanting louder, their voices merging into a booming call and response, feeding the energy that crackled like electricity in the air. Victor stood twisted in malicious delight, reveling in the spectacle. "Look at what you've brought forth." He laughed, eyes glinting with madness, ignoring their cries for help. "She will take back what was stolen. And you're foolishly caught in her web. Don't listen to him." Jenna yelled, trying to cut through the noise. "We have to break the connection." "What do we do?" Lucas asked, his voice trembling. Jenna looked down at the mark on her arm, now pulsating in sync with the growing power in the air. It had ignited something within her. A thought hung in the back of her mind, one she couldn't quite grasp. "Together. We have to push back against her. Do you think that will work?" Lucas gripped her hand tighter. "It's our only chance," she said, panic blazing in her chest. They stepped closer, the energy between them crackling as they locked eyes. A silent agreement formed in that moment. As they channeled their strength, Jenna felt the light within her intensify, her heart pounding in time with Lucas's. They raised their arms together, focusing on the mist, the screams, the faces of those trapped in agony. "We can't let her take anyone else." They shouted in unison. The swirling mass hesitated, as if hearing their plea. A moment of silence lingered, stark against the backdrop of the chaos. Then the figure unleashed a shriek that tore through the air, a sound so primal it cut through Jenna's resolve like glass. "Fools!" The woman screeched, the shadows rising to reclaim what they lost. "You will never escape." Jenna felt the darkness clawing at her thoughts, but she dug deeper, finding strength in Lucas's solid presence. "Focus. We can't give up." They continued shouting their mantra, the light pushing back against the shadows, splitting the air with brilliance. Yet, the figure wasn't backing down. Instead, it seemed to grow stronger, its laughter echoing around them like a banshee wail. Then it happened. The ground quaked beneath them, and with it came a revelation, a chilling truth that surged through Jenna. What if they weren't just fighting for their lives, but for something far more sinister? "Lucas, I think this isn't just about them," Jenna gasped, dread washing over her as the realization dawned. "What if we're awakening something worse, something tied to us?" And just then, an even darker shadow formed beside the woman, a sinister silhouette promising disaster, igniting a visceral terror deep within their hearts. What had they truly unleashed? What was the cost of seeking the truth? The warehouse trembled, and for a split second, visions of devastation flashed before her eyes, a glimpse into a hell they had no hope of escaping. The chaos escalated, and Jenna clung desperately to Lucas as the darkness swirled around them. They had to understand, they had to confront this nightmare before it devoured them whole. Would they emerge with their lives or become another whispered legend of terror? The figure, eyes glowing with ancient rage, lunged toward Jenna and Lucas, leaving them breathless and uncertain as to what fate awaited them next. What would they have to do to survive the truth embedded in this horror? The air pulsed with palpable tension as the shadowed figure lunged closer. Jenna felt a wave of dread wash over her, the icy touch of despair creeping into her thoughts. Fear clawed at her senses, whispering dark possibilities into her mind. Lucas stood frozen by her side, his face pale, eyes impossibly wide. "Run!" she screamed, breaking the spell that had captured them both. The urgency of her voice snapped Lucas into action, and they stumbled backwards, gasping, as the chanting reached a fever pitch. But the darkness pursued them. The cultists, fervently lost in their ritual, turned their twisted faces toward Jenna and Lucas, eyes gleaming with fanaticism. It felt like a trap closing in, tightening around them with every heartbeat. The room felt small and suffocating. Shadows danced in the corners, warping their escape routes with uncertainty. Jenna's heart raced, each thump echoing in her ears like a battle drum. "We have to find a way to stop her." She clutched Lucas's hand tighter, their connection grounding her amid the swirling chaos. Suddenly, the woman, the manifestation of their horror, stopped. Suspended, a smirk contorted her ghostly features. "You're too late." Her voice was a whisper, but it cut through the cacophony like a knife. "This night was destined to unfold, and you are merely players in my game. What do you want?" Jenna yelled, desperation creeping into her voice as the shadows contracted around them. The woman's smirk deepened, her eyes glinting with malice. "To reclaim what was denied. Your essence will feed this power enough to break the very fabric of the world." With a swift motion, she pointed directly at Jenna, her fingers crackling with dark energy. Jenna felt it then, the cold heat pooling in her chest as if the air itself was alive. "No!" she shouted, instinctively stepping forward as a surge of light radiated from her arm. It blazed bright, the mark pulsating with energy. "What have you done?" Lucas shouted, awareness exploding in his eyes. Jenna felt the power coursing through her, something greater than any spell or incantation. She was tapped into a force of defiance, the very essence of life pushing against death. But the woman didn't flinch. Instead, she laughed, a low rumble filled with dark promises. You think you can stop me? I have waited centuries for this moment. And you? You merely opened the door. The shadows thickened, swirling, coiling around them like serpents poised to strike. They were trapped, and the very ground beneath them trembled in response to the buildup of dark energies swirling around the sanctuary. Jenna's breath quickened. She could feel the primal pull of the unseen force, the malevolent entity the woman had summoned demanding to be unleashed. Jenna. Lucas's voice cut through her thoughts. Remember. The connection. He pulled her back from the edge of despair. Right. We've got to channel this power. Together. Jenna shouted, rallying her courage. They lunged at the figure, their arms lifted, pushing against the smothering darkness. Their combined force cracked through the oppressive air, casting a beam of light that fought back against the shadows. The figure recoiled, her laughter slicing through the air like glass breaking. You think you can sever my control? You're just feeding my power, little girl. Your fear is my strength. Panic flared at the edge of Jenna's resolve. If their light was feeding her, how could they ever escape this nightmare? Bursting through the veil of doubt, Jenna remembered, the mark on her arm was not just a symbol of their mistake, but a beacon of choice. With a sharp breath, she willed herself to focus. She imagined the light surrounding them as a shield. We have to turn it back on her. Now. Lucas's shout brought her back, and, together, they thrust out their arms with fierce determination, directing the glowing energy toward the dark figure. The beam struck true, illuminating the dim warehouse. It met the darkness head-on, and for a moment, it felt like they had reversed the tide. But the scream that erupted from the woman's lips shook the very ground. They had only scratched the surface of the horror that lurked at the core of this nightmare. As the mist swirled, Jenna caught a glimpse of visions flashing around her, families torn apart, lives devoured, a sinister legacy stretching back into centuries of bloodshed. A darkness that whispered secrets unutterable. Fight it, Jenna. Fight back. Lucas cried, emotion almost raw, but doubt slithered through her mind like the darkness itself. If they battled this force, what would it become? And what of their own histories, their own secrets yet to be revealed? With one desperate surge of will, Jenna screamed out into the maelstrom, "We are not your sacrifice. We are not food for your darkness." But as the words left her lips, the shadows recoiled, and the woman's eyes ignited with rage. This isn't over. You've only awakened a fraction of the truth. The ground shifted once more, and with a violent tremor, Jenna was thrown backwards, the force of their confrontation whispering promises of pain. Everything blurred, faces twisted and anguish flashed before her, secrets that ran deeper than she could ever imagine. Then, darkness closed in as reality warped. Jenna grasped wildly for Lucas as the warehouse dissolved around them, opening inwards like a black void. Where are we going? She thought as the world fell away, the echoes of hushed screams ringing in her ears, drifting into nothingness. Jenna could hear the figure's final, taunting whisper, lingering like a chill. You're on the path of discovery, but be warned, some truths are better left buried. And that's when the real horror began to unveil, unbound from the chains of the past, revealing something deeper and more terrifying than she had ever imagined. What fragile threads of reality could withstand this new wave of terror? Jenna's world twisted and turned, colors bleeding into dark hues, sounds merging into a cacophony of chaos. She felt a jolt as if a pin had pricked her consciousness and she was ripped free from the grasp of that dark void. Suddenly, she found herself standing in a barren room, the air thick with a musty smell that left her reeling. Lucas? She gasped, her voice barely a whisper. Panic gripped her as she scanned her surroundings, a dimly lit chamber lined with shelves overflowing with dusty tomes and fragile artifacts. The walls were draped in tattered black fabric, and symbols she couldn't recognize were chiseled into the stone beneath her feet. Each shadow seemed to breathe, alive and intent on consuming her. Jenna! Lucas's voice broke through her fog, and she turned to see him struggling against some unseen force, his hands clutching at his throat as he gasped for air. Hang on! she yelled, rushing to his side. The moment her fingers brushed against him, an electric shock coursed through her, and she felt that same power igniting within her. We can't give in. Focus on the light. She shouted, lifting their joined hands as if to channel their fear into something strong and unstoppable, but it was as if the very air around them thickened in response, pressing down like a weight. No. Lucas choked. It's too much. I can't remember what you said together. Jenna's heart raced anew, fueled by desperation and hope. If we're going to fight this, we have to trust ourselves. In his eyes, she recognized the spark of defiance rekindling. As he steadied his breath, Jenna closed her eyes, remembering the warm glow that had enveloped them moments before everything had shattered. She envisioned it bright and blooming, expanding like a flower against the gloom of despair. Together. Lucas echoed, his voice stronger now. They thrust their arms forward. Light exploded from their fingertips, illuminating the chamber and revealing a swirling portal behind a wall draped in ominous black. The further it extended, the more tangible it became, revealing glimpses of the woodland outside in stark contrast to the shadows that clung to them like a shroud. Go. She urged, pulling Lucas toward the portal. But before they could leap through, the fabric of the room seemed to vibrate, resonating with a forbidden melody that echoed off the walls. Words ancient and sinister danced in the air, wrapping around them like a net. Foolish children. A voice boomed, deep and reverberating, shaking them to their core. The figure the woman materialized before them, now monstrous, twisted beyond recognition. Dark energy swirled around her, feeding off the very fear she exuded. You think you can escape? Her eyes glowed with rage and power, brighter than the sun and far more menacing. You hold no strings here. You are merely ghosts in my play. Jenna felt the weight of her words settle over her. No, we're not your puppets. She retorted fiercely, trying to summon the warmth of the light again. But shadows flooded from the woman's hands, wrapping around Jenna and Lucas like ivy, constricting them, squeezing the breath from their lungs. Jenna's mind raced. She couldn't let this be the end. They had come too far, faced too much. Think. What is her weakness? Lucas gasped, pulling futilely against the dark bonds. Maybe it suddenly, Jenna realized a chilling truth buried deep within her memories. They had awakened something. The woman had spoken of reclaiming what was denied. It wasn't just Jenna's power in question, it ran deeper, entwined with a legacy of fear. Basic human emotion. Love. Hope. With a rush of determination, Jenna summoned those emotions, anchoring herself in the possibility of light and connection. Your darkness can't swallow our unity. She shouted, as she focused on the energy pulsing from her mark, urging Lucas to do the same. Light erupted from her core, swirling and brightening until it enveloped them fully. The shadows shrieked and writhed against their combined force like ice against the sun, while the woman's expression shifted from rage to fear. No. You don't know what you're doing. She screamed, her form flickering like a dying candle. But in that moment, a fracture split the air. The room shook violently, and Jenna and Lucas braced themselves. Suddenly, Jenna's vision blurred again, and the ground fell away beneath them. She grasped for Lucas's hand, but just as she thought she had him locked tight, he slipped through her fingers. Jenna! His voice echoed, fading into the abyss, leaving her suspended, alone, drowning in shadows. Lucas! She cried out, panic clawing at her throat. But her voice returned to nothing. Alone, Jenna spiraled into darkness, surrounded by whispers that promised doom, taunts that crept into her mind, reminding her of the truth she was just beginning to uncover, what lay beneath the surface. What horrors awaited her in this unending night? As she poured through the cold void, the essence of fear pulsed around her, waiting, restless, alive. In that crucial moment, an undeniable thought pierced her fog. She might have taken him, but she hasn't taken me. And somewhere in that darkness, beyond the reach of terror, a flicker of hope ignited. What awaited her at the end of this horror? A fragmented realm of truths better left undiscovered, or a flicker of light in the void. Jenna had to find out, and she'd do anything to uncover the truth, even if it meant facing the darkest parts of herself. As Jenna plunged further, the shadows thrummed in anticipation. What was waiting at the bottom of this rabbit hole? Jenna felt the pull of darkness wrapping tighter around her, a cold embrace that whispered secrets she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. Panic twisted in her chest, her heart beat loud in her ears. She focused on that flicker of hope, determined to claw her way back into the light. But the shadows seemed alive, hungry. They slithered around her, each movement a reminder of how close she was to losing herself. "I will not be afraid," she breathed, pulling at the remnants of strength buried deep within. "I will find him." The void shifted, and suddenly, she was no longer alone. Figures emerged from the darkness. They were ghostly shapes, faces twisted in anguish, eyes wide with terror. Jenna gasped, her throat tightening. "Help us," one of them whimpered, extending a frail hand, its voice hollow and ethereal. "Please don't let her take you too." Another cried, layers of despair cascading from its presence. Jenna's instincts screamed at her to flee, but they were trapped just like Lucas. "What do you want?" she demanded, refusing to show fear. "What is she?" The figures twisted more, their pain palpable, pressing against her senses. They took a step closer, their whispers merging into a chilling harmony. "She is the collector of souls," they moaned, the rebirth of nightmares. As she listened, Jenna felt a wave of realization wash over her. The source of her fear, the woman who held Lucas captive, was not just a force of darkness, she was a predator. Jenna tightened her resolve. "Not me," she repeated. "You may feed on fear, but you won't take me." Beware, the figures rasped, "in your search for light, you may discover your own darkness." Before Jenna could respond, the void shifted again, and the ground buckled beneath her like a wave crashing against a shore. She fell through a swirling mass of shadows and pain, the wails of lost souls echoing in her mind. Suddenly, she landed hard on a cold stone floor, breathing heavily. She fought to push the disorientation aside. When her senses cleared, Jenna found herself in a new chamber, this one filled with an acrid smoke that stung her eyes. Dull red lights flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. "Lucas," she shouted, her voice barely echoing before it drowned in the oppressive silence. She staggered to her feet, searching desperately for a sign of him. The air buzzed with electric tension, and the shadows hissed at her intrusion. "I will find you," she vowed, determination fueling her every step. This place felt different, a sinister energy pulsed in the ground. She needed to find Lucas before whatever dwelled here could sense her. Rounding a corner, she stumbled upon a series of drawings etched into the walls, horrifying depictions of sacrifice and despair. Her stomach churned. Was this what the woman craved? What twisted power fed her darkness? As Jenna studied the murals, a chill crept up her spine. Each figure drawn bears a mark, it looked similar to the one on her skin. "No," she whispered, dread curling in her throat. "Your mark binds you to her," a voice echoed from the shadows. Jenna spun around, heart racing, but no one stood there. "Show yourself," she demanded. With a cackle that echoed around her, an image materialized, a grotesque version of the woman, her form pulsating with malevolence. "Welcome, Jenna," she sneered, the air crackling with dark energy. "You've come to claim your legacy." Jenna felt a surge of panic but forced herself to stand her ground. "What have you done with him?" she shouted, hands balled into fists. The woman's grin twisted further, baring teeth that seemed too many. "He is in my realm now, sweet child. As are many, and soon, you shall join us." A bolt of fear shot through her, but rage followed hot on its heels. "No," she wouldn't succumb to this. "You won't keep me here," she yelled, more to herself than the monster before her. Determination surged within her, the warmth of hope igniting against the chill of darkness. "Join me or end up like the rest." The woman's voice floated into the air, a dire warning. Jenna breathed in deeply, every fiber of her being. Screaming to fight back. If they were linked by that mark, maybe she could break it. Maybe she could turn this darkness against its master, but the question weighed heavily in the air: would she uncover the truth and save Lucas? Or would she succumb to the very darkness she sought to escape? Time was slipping away, and every second felt like an eternity. With a roar of defiance, she charged forward into the shadows, a warrior battling her own fate. Could she defy the pull of darkness and save both their souls, or would the shadow consume her before she had the chance? Jenna lunged into the blackness, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The air wrapped around her like a vice, constricting as she pressed onward. The faint flickers of light flickered in and out, the shadows taunting her, whispering her fears. She could feel the weight of countless eyes watching, waiting, and judging. But she couldn't allow that to stop her now. Rounding another corner, a metallic clang sounded, echoing through the chamber. She froze, heart hammering in her chest. In the bleakness, she spotted a rusted cage, its bars worn and jagged. Inside, the outlines of figures huddled together, expressions unreadable but shrouded in despair. "Lucas," she gasped. But it wasn't him. It was a group of souls, a collective of the lost and the broken, laboring under the chains of their captor. "Help us," came a frantic plea from a ragged voice. "She won't let us go." Jenna felt a rush of sympathy and anger. They were victims like her, trapped in this nightmare. "Stay strong," she called out, then turned to explore the edges of the chamber for any sign of Lucas. The woman had taken him. She wouldn't let this entity hold anyone else. As she moved deeper, the drawings on the walls morphed into something more horrendous. Slashes of vivid blood red intertwined with agonizing faces, each depicting scenes of torment. The air thickened, and a warm gust set off a foul stench, reminiscent of decay and desperation. Jenna, a whisper slid through the air, soft as silk but heavy with dread. "You need to listen, don't fight alone." Her skin prickled, and she glanced around. Was the voice one of the lost souls? Or something more sinister? "Who are you?" Jenna demanded, grounding herself against the encroaching dread. "Your essence is woven with the collector. You must sever it before it's too late." She clenched her jaw, battling her rising terror. "What does that mean?" "Break the mark, find your heart," the voice rasped before fading into an echo, leaving Jenna engulfed in confusion. Could she harness this darkness? Did she even have the strength? Time was running out, and with a fierce roar, Jenna pushed further into the shadows, fueled by a defiant spark. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of something, an opening. A dim light shone faintly ahead, like a star cutting through a stormy sky. She raced toward it, hoping beyond hope that Lucas awaited beyond that light. Each step felt heavier, the darkness clawing at her back, whispering threats and promises. "Don't leave us," came the chorus of voices, anxiety twisting Jenna's stomach. "I will find him," she shouted, teetering between resolve and desperation. The light grew brighter, blinding her momentarily, a blinding beacon testing her will, but as Jenna stepped through, the scene shifted. She stumbled into a new chamber, a stark contrast to the hell she left behind. The walls were adorned with vibrant colors, filled with life. Sunlight streamed in, illuminating a simple wooden table at the center. On it sat an ornate mirror, its surface swirling with shadows. Drawn in spite of herself, she approached the mirror. Within its depths lay visions of her and Lucas, their laughter echoing, their bond untouched. She touched the glass, feeling warmth radiate from the reflection. Jenna, her reflection called, but it wasn't just her voice. Lucas's undertone melded with it, harmonizing perfectly. "Lucas!" she cried, heart leaping. This was their connection. The mark. Suddenly, the room darkened, and the grotesque figure re-emerged beside her, laughing softly. "Do you think this will save you?" The woman's voice dripped with venom. "The mirror is but a trick. You will never escape." Jenna's heart raced. Frustration boiled over. She had to break the connection, but how? Just then, she recalled the souls trapped in chains, their pain screaming in her ears. Everything she loves will become her prison. The voice of the lost souls echoed, urging her to make a choice. With a deep breath, fueled by love and unyielding determination, she prepared to confront the mirror and unravel the threads of deception binding her and Lucas. Darkness loomed behind her like a storm, relentless and unyielding. Would her emotions empower her to shatter the chains binding their fate? The looming question enveloped her as the storm swirled around, waiting for her final choice. Would she confront the haunting truth or fall victim to the shadow's deadly grasp? The room shimmered, blurring between shadow and light, as Jenna stood before the mirror, strength radiating through her. The swirling essence within reflected not just her face but emotions, memories, and glimpses of Lucas's laughter, the life they fought to reclaim. But the women, shadows swirling around her, filled the air with dark tremors of doubt, pushing her back against the weight of their malice. Do you think love can save you? The figure jeered, her elongated shadow snaking across the ground, grasping at Jenna's ankles. Love is weak, it's a fleeting flame destined to flicker out. You will fail. But Jenna felt something deep within her ignite. Love wasn't just a flicker, it was a fire, fierce and unwavering. No. Jenna shouted, her voice bold, echoing fiercely off the walls like a rallying cry. Love is stronger than any darkness you can wield. With a surge of adrenaline, she thrust her hand toward the mirror. The reflection pulsed in response, radiating warmth like sunlight. Dark tendrils attempted to lash out, but the light repelled them, illuminating every corner of the room with golden glows. It was as if the love she cherished had become a shield, blinding and powerful. Jenna! You can do this! The faint echo of Lucas's voice resonated through the mirror, fighting through chains of darkness that bound him. The urgency in his voice fueled her determination. Together. We are stronger together. She called out, remembering the warmth of their shared laughter and the countless moments of joy that had built a life worth fighting for. She envisioned the mark on her arm, not as a curse but as a connection uniting them, binding their strengths together. Break it! Jenna yelled, the energy radiating from her heart translating into light. I am no one's sacrifice. We defy you. As their hearts synchronized, the light intensified, beams cascading from her fingertips like stars igniting the night sky. With each pulse, she could feel the energy intertwining with Lucas's essence. They were two bright flames, cutting through the bleakness engulfing them. With a final shout of defiance, Jenna pressed forward into the mirror's surface. In a flash of brilliance, the whole chamber exploded with energy. Shadows writhed wildly against the light, the woman screeched, rage echoing in the corners of reality. The mirror exploded, sending shards of darkness splintering apart like fireworks into a starry abyss. In a moment of blinding clarity, Jenna found herself standing in the open air, sunlight flooding her face as she landed softly on warm grass. Lucas! Where was he? Panic washed over her like a tidal wave. Jenna! The familiar voice called, and her heart soared. She spun around, relief flooding her as she saw him, standing several feet away, slightly disheveled but unharmed. The connection was still there, their mark glowing faintly on their skin, yet diminished. Lucas! She rushed to him, their arms wrapping around each other in a fierce embrace. Tears of relief streamed down her face as they held on tightly, the shadows of their previous despair fading into the bright afternoon light. Are we free? He whispered, glancing around cautiously. I think we are, Jenna breathed, feeling lighter. The weight of darkness had been pushed back, their love shattering the bonds of fear and despair. Yet, an understanding loomed in her heart, a truth as fragile as it was powerful. Their victory was not just theirs, they had awakened something profound. The scars of the past would always hold a place in their hearts, serving reminders of their battle and the darkness they'd faced together. But for now, surrounded by sunlight, Jenna felt an innate sense of hope blossom into reality. They had escaped the clutches of a malevolent force, but they knew their journey was far from over. There were others out there in need of help, caught in the same grasp of darkness. Let us not just leave it here, Jenna stated, determination shining in her eyes. We can help them. We can bring light into places consumed by darkness. Lucas nodded resolutely, his grip on her hand tightening. Together, he affirmed, and they began walking, side by side, toward the horizon where the sun warmed their faces anew. With every step, they would remind themselves and others love could conquer fear. Fear may claw at the edges of their hearts, but united, they were a force against the shadows that once threatened to consume them. As they ventured forth into a world filled with uncertainty, Jenna knew they had given their pain a purpose. And from that belief, a new journey began, a journey they would face together as warriors of love and hope, committed to bringing light wherever it was dimmed by the shadows. This was closure, but also a prologue to something greater. And you. Yes, you. Before you go, don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss any of the exclusive stories lined up. You need to be part of this community. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help more people discover these tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. Share what you think of this conclusion. And don't stop there. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Your voice matters. Let us spread the light together.